This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is a perfectly lovely Lenovo 14-inch Ultrabook that is cursed with their unfortunate naming convention. This is the IdeaPad Slim 7i Pro, right? And there have been so many IdeaPad 7s, some of them with AMD Ryzen. This is not one of them, but don't stop watching it. It's still worth watching this. And some of them with Yoga. Sometimes, indeed, we've seen ones in Europe named Yoga that don't Yoga. They're really IdeaPads like we have in the United States. So now that I complain about the name, just mark it in your brains because this is the one that's most commonly available and in stock. Now, unlike Ryzen models, which are hard to find, and some of the older gen Slim 7 not Pros that Lenovo still offers. So what's cool about this is, yes, it's Intel 11th gen CPU inside, but this is that interesting in-between CPU. It's a 35-watt quad core, so it's more powerful than the U-series Ultrabook CPUs that we usually see in, well, Ultrabooks. You see these in entry-level gaming laptops sometimes, this processor. Not as powerful as a 45-watt, but then again, for something that's under 3 pounds and is very portable, that's pretty powerful. And you have Iris Xe graphics on board, which, packs a good punch, especially in conjunction with this processor. Combine that with a 14-inch display. It's a touchscreen display that's 16:10 aspect ratio and pretty high resolution. It's 2880 by 1800 resolution. You're getting more premium. And then you have the aluminum chassis and some other nice bells and whistles that make it worth watching if you're looking for an upper mid-range Ultrabook that costs around $1,000 or potentially less this time of year with all the sales going on. We're going to look at it now. So that sounds pretty interesting. Aluminum chassis, slim and light, and that quite high resolution display and something that isn't the super premium $1,500 to $2,000 price range. Also, that display has a 90 hertz refresh rate, so you don't see that so often, right? I mean, that's not like crazy high gaming laptop refresh rates, but this isn't a gaming laptop. And now that people have started to appreciate the more silky smooth scrolling that you see with the higher refresh rate display, I certainly wouldn't complain about that. We have a couple of other little bells and whistles, including a one-finger open lid. Some people still love that. A 1080p webcam, and it also has a Windows Hello IR camera, and it has that presence detection that we've seen on some Lenovo's, which means that it can lock when you walk away, and it can automatically use the facial recognition and unlock when you come up close. Likewise, put the screen to sleep, wake it up, all that sort of thing. If you don't like that, you can disable it, but if you like it, and I can understand that, well, it's there for you. All right, as we talk about the rest of the specs, we'll actually see them for ourselves. To take off the bottom panel, it's Torx T5 screws. The ones in the front are shorter. Start prying from the front. There's one area that pops up a little bit to make it easier. And then you can take off the metal bottom cover, which has plenty of ventilation mesh, obviously. So here we have we've got the dual fan cooling going on here, a single heat sink. That's a pretty good cooling solution for what we have here. We have a M.2 NVMe SSD. Now, this is a Western Digital 1 terabyte. That's what it comes with it. So this platform should support PCIe 4, but we have a PCIe 3 drive in here. But typically, even more expensive laptops would have a PCIe 4 drive. Still, this one benchmarks pretty fast. The Wi-Fi card, which is a Wi-Fi 6 card AX201 with Bluetooth 5.1, is socketed, so you could swap that out if you needed to. RAM, like most Ultrabooks, is soldered on board. You get 16 gigs of DDR4 low power 4266 megahertz RAM in dual channel configuration, soldered on, won't be upgrading it. Our stereo drivers are down firing. They're right over here. Again, these are 2-watt speakers. They sound pretty decent. And there's the battery, should you need it to service it at some point. So the display on this, I like it quite well. The metrics on it are good, and certainly in this price range, very good. Again, the high resolution, the 16:10 aspect ratio, and the touchscreen make it nice, even if it's not a convertible design. This is a traditional clamshell laptop. Does open to 180 degrees flat, but that's as far as it goes. Anyway, nice looking display. The only complaint I have is, like so many consumer laptops, very glossy screens. So it has quite good brightness and it achieves better than the claimed 400 nits, but you'll need a little extra brightness to overcome the shine. There's no PWM for those of you who hate that sort of thing. Now, one way you get a leg up over AMD Ryzen, if it's not in the performance and thermals department of things, is the fact that you get Thunderbolt 4. So we got Thunderbolt 4 ports on board. We have one USB-A port, so you don't have to immediately run for a dongle if you want to use a USB-A mouse or other common peripheral. Headphone jack. No micro SD card or SD card slot. Oh, well, that. So ports, okay, not great. It's not a ThinkPad X1 Carbon or something like that when it comes to a wide selection of ports, but this is not a business laptop. The keyboard is your typical IdeaPad and also Yoga to a certain extent keyboard. It's not a ThinkPad keyboard, but it's pretty tactile. It feels a bit crisp, but compared to a ThinkPad keyboard, some people say mushy, and I can understand that. But it's not bad, and it has a bit more key travel than some consumer laptops these days. So, and it's backlit in white. Trackpad's perfectly fine, Microsoft Precision, and the stereo speakers on this are pretty good. You got 2-watt stereo speakers, 2x2, and it supports Dolby Atmos, and they're pretty loud and they're pretty full sounding. So for a laptop, I think that's pushing that whole multimedia thing. Well, it sounds pretty good. In terms of performance, it's interesting because you got that Intel H series CPU, 35-watt, quad core though, not 6 to 8 cores like you would see in a mobile workstation CPU. And the performance is sort of like an overclocked Ultrabook CPU. It's not crazy high, but part of that, there are thermal constraints in this chassis. This isn't something like an Asus ROG Tough gaming laptop where you got plenty of room for cooling and all that sort of thing. So it seems to even out without a lot of like thermal throttling and up and downing, which is a good thing. But typically, the whole system will use about 45 watts, including the Intel Iris Xe graphics. So performance a little bit better than your usual Ultrabook, but not mind-blowing. It doesn't beat Ryzen in the same category. For example, Lenovo's own Ryzen version of the 7 Slim, not Pro. Still, because Lenovo's Vantage software, which is basically their control panel for the laptop, it does have performance modes. If you put in performance mode, you'll see a 15 to 20% increase in performance. So it can push the thermals, it can push the fan. You can get the chassis pretty warm, not burning hot. If you're doing something like really hard work, you have it in performance mode. In everyday use, it stays perfectly quiet and cool and is like a normal Ultrabook in that respect. For a battery, we have a 61 watt-hour battery. It comes with a 65-watt quick charger. Always happy to see that. So 61 watt-hour, that's pretty decent for a laptop this size. But then again, you have a little bit more of a power-hungry CPU. So as you can imagine, it kind of evens out. And typically, I manage 8 hours doing light productivity work with brightness set to 200 nits. Obviously, you're pushing it harder, it will be shorter. But if you're just doing Office and web and YouTube and video streaming and that sort of thing, you could hit 8 hours with the brightness at that reasonable 200 nits or so. So that's the Lenovo IdeaPad Slim 7i Pro. Now that I'm done saying that, I'm tired. It's a pretty nice laptop for the money. For those of you who are looking for a better than average screen at higher resolution and a touch screen at that, and a little bit more oomph than normal from your CPU power, you've got that here, along with all the things you'd like to see at this price point. Aluminum chassis, the IR Windows Hello camera with that presence detection, which is actually pretty handy, a decent enough keyboard, all that sort of thing. They've done a good job here, other than with the name. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more cool tech videos, and thumbs up if you like this vid.